Court of Truth, episode 4, where we are talking about She-Hulk episode 4. Is this real magic? Or is that even real? Or something along the lines of that. It ends in a question mark. We have a fun time with it. I think it's a quote from the episode.
Yeah, it is. I was trying to remember exactly what it
It's
was.
just not real magic. I just got there. um, Anyone watching this instead of listening may notice that I am in my normal court attire because let us not forget, this is the Universal Court of Truth and not the Universal Church of Truth. However, this week, on my end at least, is not about anyone who showed up formally to a courtroom. This week is for Madisynn. And for Madisynn, I'm going to have a good time in the courtroom. I have this wine glass filled with canned Long Island iced tea.
I was about to say, like, that's a lot of wine, dude. Like,
It's not wine. Don't even worry
hard.
about it.
Like, I respect it, but it's pretty full.
I just have like a bottle of wine that I start chugging like mid episode. No, but for me, Madisynn is the star of this episode. I love this episode. But this episode is great for quite a few, many a reason. So as per usual, Mary, with your really cool The Invincible Iron Man shirt, please give us your thoughts, feelings, opinions, and ideas about She-Hulk episode 4.
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm your second host. I am again, yeah, in a t-shirt like most weeks. Although I think I've been like green most weeks, but I just got this shirt, so I think it's fun. Not dressed up for court attire. Always feel like the one letting everyone down. That's okay.
That's okay.
Um,
You bring your brain, which is like way more important than anything I'm offering here. So
okay, my thoughts. I literally just watched it to prep for this. Well, I've seen it like 4 or 5 times by now. But obviously, I think this one was generally a fan favorite. Like, I think people before it came out who had seen it were like, this one's great. I think the director, like, there was asked, like, what her favorite episode was, and it's this one. Um, obviously, it's great. I think it I think it's the perfect form of like what this show should be or would like be great to be. I think it's like the perfect example. Like part of me really likes last episode's like very specific moments of humor better, but like overall, the concept and sort of obviously you have this whole ass case, basically just one case. You're not like bouncing between some of different things, and then it's something absurd of Donnie Blaze, and it's Wong on the other side, and obviously we have Madisynn. So I think this is like quintessential what I want this series to be and what I think it will be going forward, and kind of has been the last few episodes. So I loved it. Um, Lots going on there. Had a great time. At a certain point, it gets kind of tiring, not tiring, but like hard to like keep saying I really liked it, so I haven't had to do that too much. So but yeah.
yeah, the people have a pretty good idea that you and I both love this show. But I do think it's worth saying every week that like, because I mean, knock on wood, fingers crossed, there's not a week where this is the last episode that you and I have seen prior, or that anyone has seen prior, as far as I know. So after this, I have no idea if the quality maintains, but I would like to think that it does, and I think it's worth saying these first 4 were great because that we've known for sure for a minute. But this episode does get into, like you said, a lot of the stuff that for me feels like what this show really has the potential to be, which is just that like goofy, fun case of the week vibe on top of. I mean, again, there is an overarching story. The cliffhanger ending from last week is not really touched upon in this, but you have to assume that's going to come back at some point down the line. Um, but yeah, we have quite a few things worth talking about. The main legal case, which I would love to get to first in this, involves one Donnie Blaze, which I know has been a controversial joke name online. Obviously, I refuse to believe it's a coincidence. Like they have to know what they're doing. For anyone who might not know what I'm talking about, Donnie Blaze sounds an awful lot like Johnny Blaze, who famously is Ghost Rider, who, unless Agents of Shield is canon, has not has yet to exist in the MCU.
Wasn't Johnny Blaze in
No, but Johnny Blaze did have like a one episode cameo appearance.
Oh, well, okay.
When they go over surprise, this episode's actually about Agents of Shield. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, when Robbie Reyes, they like have an origin episode for him where he flashes back and reveals his tragic backstory, and like really quick you see Johnny Blaze's Ghost Rider like grant him the spirit of vengeance so that he may live, and it's like a whole thing. Um Anyway, Donnie Blaze is not a Ghost Rider. Donnie Blaze is kind of a second-rate magician who knows some real magic, apparently. And he's using it in a way that our good friend Wongers does not approve of. Um, Mary, before we even recorded, you said to me that you had some thoughts on the legal scenario here.
Yeah.
And I, for one, want to hear that first before we talk about anything. So please break down this case from your legal perspective.
The whole case. Well, yeah. So I mean, there was more like law going on, I think, here than any other episode. Obviously, it kind of built each episode because the first episode, we had Hulk origin story on an island, not a lot of law. But this one, it's pretty easy to follow because you've just got the one. So basically, as you mentioned, Donnie Blaze, great guy, I assume. I kind of felt I had a weird feeling of sympathy for that man in the beginning. In the beginning, when he's like, no one cares about his tricks, so he's trying. I mean, they're bad. Everyone just like he seems so sad. So like he's not. I don't think he's supposed to be a sympathetic character, but I did feel bad. Anyway,
he's like not a sympathetic. I think that you make a good point because I felt similarly. Like I kind of understood why he was doing it in the sense of like he just wants to be a successful magician, and that's like the one trick that people seem to like.
They gave him like 2 seconds of a shot that made me go, oh, like I didn't need to.
Yeah, like
but,
is he an idiot? Yes, but is he a sympathetic idiot? Maybe.
Yeah. But okay, yeah. So I don't know, studied at Comertage for like a hot minute for some reason. We didn't get too much on that, but that's why he had a sling ring, I guess, a new bare minimum sling ringery. But so obviously, as we know, at his magic show, when people thought he was lame and he got sad, he made a big portal in Madisynn with the Y where you don't expect it, but like also probably is where you expect it. Goes through and has her whole journey of the hell and the goat and the demon and Jake, the demon. Yeah.
Thank you. I did just want to say, while we were talking about it, I really, really enjoy how prominent portals have become in the MCU, and I like that the explanation is sort of just like, this is the first thing that we teach people about magic is how to make a portal, and so that becomes the thing that like everybody does. But yeah, I just think it's funny. I feel like making a portal has become the calling card of I know magic, which I think is really funny. Um, and I also no, actually that's my only thought. Please continue.
Okay. So he does that, and somehow whatever demon Madisynn met, like put a portal into Wonger's place. Well, we now know him as Wongers because she like calls him Wongers. But Madisynn and Wong hang out. They both like The Sopranos, so clearly Madisynn has already seen it and keeps spoiling it. Oh, that's what I wanted to say last time, but I couldn't say it last time. You kept saying when Wong was late to the hearing on Blonsky's book that it was probably because he was doing all these crazy like Source of Spring stuff, and I was thinking, I'm like, I think he was just watching The Sopranos. Like that's all he was doing. And
the last season, it was funny because I recently just watched The Sopranos for the first time, so like, luckily I didn't get spoiled by this episode. But I knew what happened in the episode I made a note of it in my phone that he was specifically watching Long-Term Parking, which is the episode that they spoil in that. And I was like, oh, it's so funny that that's the episode that he's about to watch when Madisynn like appears, and then they just spoiled it in the episode, and I was like, oh, okay, so I don't have to talk about that anymore. But anyway, yes.
But I think in hindsight, the joke was he was watching Sopranos and lost track of time, and that's why he was late. That's I mean, because his Portal background when he came in was like his room or living room or whatever that is. But anyway, so at that point, Long's mad. He's like, wow, can't believe this guy's just doing this, which I think we would all agree seems irresponsible, right? Like,
does, yeah.
People to like weird dimensions and realms and demons hard pass. Like, you probably shouldn't be doing that. But so he already knew Jen, as we know from last episode, and so he wanted her to essentially bring a case that would force him to stop doing that. And that's like what they did, more or less. Although it did end in terms of he kind of realized his mistakes after the whole Gremlin issue and was like, okay, I won't do it anymore. So, but it did raise a lot of interesting legal points, but like several. I don't know if you want me to just keep randomly talking.
Well, I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but I will say, me watching it, knowing that I was going to get a chance to talk to you about it at some point, I was specifically curious about the way that it was resolved and how, like, legally in the real world that would stand, or like the implications that would have in the way that Wong wanted them to have, and also the the fact that he didn't have any sort of written, like, I will not use magic outside of Kamertage, or I will not use this magic in this way, or whatever. Like, for me, when I was kind of proud of myself in the sense that when the case first came up, I was like, he doesn't have anything written, so I don't know if that's going to go anywhere. And then that was the problem, and I was like, yeah, I know law, and it was really exciting. Um, but yeah, those were like the 2 points that I had in my head. Was in the real world, if someone was like, I want to sue this guy and make a point out of him, but there is no legal document that he broke, is like, how would you go about a case like that without it being as cut and dry as it could be? And the way that ends with, I don't know, almost like intimidation. I mean, like, it's not intimidation because, again, I do think they see, like, where their mistake lies at the end, but one could argue that intimidation was involved, and they're just like, yeah, I agree to the cease and desist, and, like, what would that mean for the future, any future cases along these lines? Those are my two main questions.
Yeah, good question. I will answer the one about what the end of this case really mean. So, as Wong announced when he came into her office at the beginning, he said, I want you to set a precedent that nobody, I don't know what phrase he used, I don't know, license is the right term at all, but like, nobody who shouldn't be practicing magic is allowed to practice magic. So what it turns out in this case is that for sure is not what the result was, because they got them to agree to a cease and desist personally. So Donnie Blaze agreed to legally never do it, or at least face legal repercussions if he does. But that doesn't affect literally anybody else. Like, that's just a personal.
Right. That's sort of what I was thinking.
Also, I agree, it's not really intimidation because they were more scared of all the gremlins than anything else. But interesting point is lawyers cannot just go talk to like the other people. Like, you got to go through lawyers. The fact that she was ever She-Hulk, like, yelling at him without his lawyer present, like, that's wrong. Like, that's just bad. Again, fictional, so it's okay. And I think justice was served, so I think we're all okay with that. But, so yeah, obviously no written documents were made at Comertage, although you'd think by now, by 2025, I'm just picking 2025 as the random.
I do like that this is a thing that comes up every single She-Hulk. We're just like, 2020 question mark.
More to me is in 2025-ish, give or
One
take.
thing that I did notice, actually, just because we are talking about this, and I think that you would find it funny, something I didn't pick up the first few times I watched Spider-Man No Way Home, which takes place, I guess, essentially like in the same ish, like maybe a year. But I don't know. But spoiler alert, Aunt May dies in that movie, and then at the end, I know what. Peter goes to visit her grave, and the movie purposefully doesn't show the year that she died. Like even Marvel was like, I don't know if we want to take too hard of a stance on when this is happening. And I just thought that was really funny because it felt like such an unnecessary question mark that they have like a leaf covering her death date. It's just 2020 leaf, and it's the best.
Yeah, and there have been times like in the background of some shows, there'll be like a flyer for something and it'll have a year on it. Like I think that happened in Hawkeye maybe.
Yeah.
So it's like be consistent. Like I guess background stuff isn't as hard canon, but that is funny. Yeah, I'm just 2025-ish. You know, I don't want to say 2022 and sound like an uneducated person.
I understand. We're aware that the blip happened in case anyone was afraid we weren't experts.
And but what was I saying though? Okay, so by now you'd think they'd have this would have come up before, but Johnny Blaze. So what I think they did do, it wasn't obviously incredibly clear because I think for the audience it was they're just suing them to stop doing it. Fair enough. Is they brought a case for a couple of things, but one of the things they specifically noted was gross negligence. And before they even said that, I thought that's just a tort claim, which is just a basic negligence claim. I'm trying to go where to start. Torts are a lot of things. Torts like everything, not criminal. But it's basically like saying you did something knowing you probably shouldn't do it. This is not the correct legal way of putting it, but this is like knowing you shouldn't have done it, you did it anyway, it caused harm.
So like technically it's not illegal. There's no specific law saying you can't do this.
But people can sue you.
Yeah, because it would seem as though even though it's not against the law, you have caused some form of harm to someone or damage or something.
And there are very specific standards of like what rises to the mental level required to be negligent. So they've mentioned gross negligence, which is like negligence is based on this theory of there's like an ordinary standard of care that every human being like knows reasonably they have to abide by. So picture driving, ordinary standard of care, you don't like drive into someone's yard and hit their house, right? Like that's pretty dramatic, but like that's like we all agree on that. So if you break it, could be negligence. So gross negligence would be like really straying from that ordinary standard of care. So that would probably be more like the hitting the house for fun example. But in this case, I do think that that is pretty valid. I mean, I think they could have just gone less than gross negligence, but like this guy is using magic. He knows he doesn't know how to use much of it. He knows it can be dangerous. It has to be dangerous. He still does it.
Is it Wong who says gross negligence, or is it Jen who suggests that?
Jen, and then the judge says, like, I don't know how you can try to tell me that a magic trick constitutes gross negligence, which I'm sorry, we're in the MCU, and there's this judge lady sitting there acting like she doesn't know that there's real magic. Like, I don't know, that plot hole for me, but
like, Asgard literally exists on Earth, as we had to deal with in the exact last episode. It's like you literally have gods living in like the Netherlands, so I feel like we should.
but point taken is obviously the comedy of like magician having real magic and the chaos that can cause. But interestingly enough, in the case they were trying to get, and they say it plenty of times, give up, I'm out, I'm quitting, a preliminary injunction. Which all that means is at that point, had the judge been like, yeah, they would have been able to tell Donnie Blaze, don't do this through the whole case until the case was resolved. So even if he ultimately won, he would have been barred from doing that until the end of that case. There's a whole legal thing there that's fun. But to your point, no precedent has been set, or at least like from a reasonable, even fictional legal perspective, like no precedent has been set for any other Donnie Blazes whether or not that matters ever again. But like it was not the result Wongers really wanted or probably needed.
Because it like you said, it does raise interesting questions in the sense that it might not be a bad idea to have some sort, especially now that magic is like more widespread and known, and people apparently anyone who shows any sort of potential for it can just like go to Camertage and learn or whatever. Um, I mean, Ned Leeds is doing magic out there, like portals again, more portals, and it feels like having some sort of precedent or law like might not be a terrible idea. I see where Wong is coming from. It doesn't feel like this is. It feels like the MCU almost left it to be like, yeah, we can have another case sort of like this in the future if we want to, or we can just say like this did set a precedent somehow for people and like just run with it. But
yeah, I don't think they were necessarily trying to like keep that exact thing open. I think it was just like a cute way for them to be like, oh shit, I made a gremlin portal. Not a fan of this. Oh yeah, I'll agree to it. Because that's what she even says. She's like, you'll agree to the terms of our cease and desist. That's not a legal order. So if anything, it's like the worst case scenario, except other than like straight up losing the case, because there is no judge, nothing has said anything about it. So there's still no precedent. The exact same case could come, and there's just nothing to even compare it to at this point.
right.
So yeah, I mean, so great question.
Oh wait, so okay. That's even, I feel like I was understanding it one way and then you just said that and now I'm understanding it even more, and that like, so a cease and desist, again, this might sound like a stupid question, but as someone who doesn't think about that often, a cease and desist means straight up like they just kind of drop it, like we're just like, okay, we're done,
Yeah.
and there's no like book that's like this was the result of this case and a judge made a ruling. Okay, cool.
A cease and desist is more like, and I don't deal with cease and desist. Haven't dealt with cease and desist yet. I may or may not be doing that, but as much as the rest of the stuff I've dealt with. But essentially, that's more akin to like a contract between two people, more or less, which is just not like law in court. Like that's just a private agreement you make. If you break it, you can sue them for breaking that agreement, but you've not said anything about any law saying they need to abide by these terms. Anyone similar needs to abide by these terms? Not at all. So yeah, there's literally nothing on the books about this case other than whatever they filed in court. Literally, so no ruling was made on it whatsoever. So just not. It's a pretty much net zero.
Okay.
Other than Donnie Blaze.
So not only did it not do what Wong originally wanted it to do, it's almost like it never happened.
Yeah, except for Donnie Blaze himself, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. See,
Although
I'm glad we have these chats that people
yeah.
can hear, because I feel like I didn't realize that at
Yeah.
all.
I mean, I don't think too many people think that hard about it and like keeps them.
No, and again, to clarify for anyone listening, this is like, it's fun to break it down and figure it out, but I feel like we're also both very aware that this is a comic book TV show and it is just for fun, and like the writers weren't thinking that hard about it either, which is good. um
Gonna become one of these extreme Twitter people who like doesn't have that distinction of like real versus MC. It's very strange. No, I don't know. I don't even know how to do that. So
yeah, no. Is there anything else, like legally speaking, that stood out to you as curious? Oh, you have a notepad.
I think they could have. I think they could have sued him and set precedent. This would have been good for use of magic as an ultra hazardous activity or like an inherently dangerous activity. Different language, different course.
So you're
Which just means if you use it and you hurt somebody with it, like you can get sued and you don't. There's nothing else. It's strict liability, just meaning you don't have to. You could have done everything in your power to do it right. If you fuck it up, you're liable. But the bad part of that is What if Wong fucks something up, just being Wong? He didn't do anything like wrong. People can just sue him all day under that theory. That's the problem here, is people can sue anyone. Anyway, let's see.
I feel like we're gonna. This is becoming a whole like existential thing, but I feel like magic by nature is sort of chaotic. Like there are rules, but I feel like every time someone casts a spell, there are all these different ways it can go, and every time there's dark magic involved or all these crazy bad things are happening, they always gotta like break a rule to fix it, or they always gotta like do something really risky to fix it, and yeah, so I feel like when you start introducing law into magic, which I think I again, in my opinion, in the way the MCU has been using it, does feel kind of naturally chaotic in its own way. That does make it really, really difficult. But that is an interesting idea. Like this idea that if you hurt someone with magic, we do set a precedent. There is some sort of law. The fun, fancy, official way that you phrased it that I've already forgotten.
Ultra hazardous, this one.
Yes, ultra hazardous.
Honestly, that'd be a pretty easy case to win. And if Wong wanted to be the witness or like one of the witnesses to testify at how horrifying magic can be, like slam dunk, like precedent set. But you don't have like an exception per se for the good guys, you know.
Right. That's
Warner and Mr. Doctor Strange, wherever he may be at this time in Dark Dimension. I don't know what he's doing. Um,
and if that were the case, we're we're sort of veering off track here, but again, I think this is more interesting than some other things we could be saying. Like I was just talking about No Way Home, and like a whole big part of No Way Home is a spell gone terribly wrong. So like, say this case happened pre No Way Home, and then the ultra hazardous thing, like that precedent has been set, and this is something that can be done now. And then everything in No Way Home happens, but in this hypothetical scenario, people don't forget. Like people don't forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So they know, okay, all this crazy stuff happened as the result of a spell. Some people got hurt. There were like supervillains and all that crazy stuff. Could someone then be like take Peter Parker to court and be like, "You messed up a spell that someone was casting, and my grandma got hurt, and I need like you to pay damages."
Based on my viewing of No Way Home, I think Peter could sue Doctor Strange under the theory because I think Peter's not a wizard, magician, sorcerer.
Right. He didn't cast the spell. He messed it up, but someone else.
But I mean, at least in terms of what we saw in the movie, he wasn't given like a very definite list of do and do not. You know, he didn't sign paperwork. He didn't.
It's Steven's fault for.
Right. He trusted him to do it. He was just trying to help. Like I don't think. I mean, every law is law, but I think if we have this precedent we've discussed, I think he could easily sue Doctor Strange for everything that happened after him.
Wow.
Because Doctor Strange shouldn't have fucked it up. I mean, like that's a big plot hole of the movie. Like, let's be honest, there's too much just easily fucked up there.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, MJ in that movie is kind of a legend for being the only person to just call out Doctor Strange to his face.
100% though. I mean, like he was.
Yeah, no, she's 100% correct. She's like, it's your spell. Why are we the ones cleaning it up?
Yeah, and plus, I mean, Peter Parker's a kid in this. Like he's a minor, and that doesn't always have like a direct place in the law, but it does. Like there's special considerations for minors who do shit wrong, especially in like the civil context, and criminals. But so yeah, I think realistically, I guess people could sue Peter, but Peter didn't do any of the magic. That's the problem. Whether he fucked with it or not, maybe there's something there, but he is a kid who wasn't trying to, and the other guy fucked it up.
And then you can take into consideration that, like, say Peter is suing Steven, he could call Wong as a witness and be like, hey, you warned Steven not to do it, right? And then he would have to, by oath, say yes, and then.
It's a great case. I mean,
Wow.
Figured it out. You need to hire us for She-Hulk season 2 if that's a thing.
I'm glad that you said us like I've done anything.
I wouldn't be here just alone, so I don't know. You brought
Like
up
we
no.
should also hire you as a consultant, and I would be in the corner like more drunk characters, and it would.
Giant wine glass full of not wine. I don't know.
every meeting, every writers room meeting, it cuts back to me, and the glass is like a little bit bigger somehow. And then for the season finale, it's like a full fishbowl. It's just, oh boy. Yeah, I feel like that was a pretty good breakdown of that case. And like you said earlier, last episode had 2 legal cases to discuss, and this one was very much focused on the one because the B plot here is not another legal case. It is Jen's personal life. Jen did some dating around in this episode. This is the episode where you're right to laugh at me speaking like an old man. Did some of that internet swiping that I hear so much about, and yeah, this is where that marketing Tinder marketing trick really pays off. Is this episode? There was a lot of fun little things separate from the dating thing, but also related to Jen's personal life. I did make a little note that I like that in the beginning of the episode when she's like, "Oh yeah, I see you noticed that Wong is here again," and it's like he's made us Twitter proof for the week, and it's a very funny fourth wall break. I like that for that whole sequence, she's wearing clothes that are too big for her.
I mean, she does that before too. Ever since she found out she had to transport,
Yeah.
she did that. But it was that same scene. I thought about it. I'm like, that's just cute. Like
it's cute. Very noticeable in that scene, and I'm just like, oh, that's funny. I like that.
I really don't like. I think in a lot of similar type shows or like genres, like that would be a running gag, and maybe it will be. I don't know, but they really don't mention it. There's just kind of like she has to.
There.
Yeah, I do like that.
Yeah, that made me laugh, and the funny thing is, I don't even think I noticed it on the first watch. It was like the second watch. I was like, wait, why is her suit jacket so big? Oh, right. Because she's going to turn into a Hulk. That makes sense. Yeah. Again, I brought her up at the beginning, but Jen's personal life. I'll save Madisynn for later. We're gonna talk more about Madisynn later. I teed up the personal life thing, so I feel like I should swing and hit that golf ball. Mary, what were your thoughts on the dating sequence? I found it to be really funny. I especially really liked the bit where she's on the terrible date with that guy who's just kind of on his phone whenever she's talking about herself, and then they like the standoff to reach for the check. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Very much a She-Hulk specific brand of comedy that I enjoyed.
Yeah, I thought it was very funny, and I think at least in terms of just like her friends swiping for her and her feeling weird to make a profile and swiping and like it's very I mean it's a show, but it's relatively realistic stuff. Like you swipe on some cute guy and oh there you go, Prince Charming, the end. Like it was awkward, which I think the process is. So yeah, the bad dates were funny. But I have to say I'm gonna rant about something related to the like real hot guy later, and like obviously he like left at the end.
You can do it now if you want. I mean, we're kind of talking about it.
Okay. So as we know, lead up into it, she does eventually find, once she's in She-Hulk profile form, this guy who's like pediatrician, like a pediatric oncologist or something. I asked after she was like, "What are you?" Anyway, that was all funny. She gets together with him. She's like pretty happy about it. And then the next morning, she's back in gym form, and he sees her. He's like, "Oh, I'm out." What I'm ranting about, obviously, that's shitty. That is from the comics, though, too. It's not. But I've seen people on fucking Twitter say that she raped this guy And I want to scream at that. They don't know what that means. She literally told him she's a human who transforms into a Hulk. He knows her name. He could Google her. I'm sure they have a whole conversation about it. People on fucking Twitter, people, creeps. And how she raped this guy.
We all know they're not.
He supposedly didn't know what she looked like normally. Okay, I'm sorry, someone wear a wig when you met him? Like, they took it off, that's rape? Like, what the fucking hell? That pissed me off a lot. So there's some valid points to be made in television and film on real sketchy sexual scenarios, both genders, mainly, women, but that's not it. And that's just fucked up, and that's not okay. And that's my rant. But I did find a lot of the process of her meeting this guy before he was kind of a dick very funny, because she was very cynical at that point, and then he just had all the right answers, just like overly right answers. Like, you want to split fries, like I don't know. When she was like going in and out of the portals, battling the gremlins, he was reading some like feminism book. So
yeah, I got a real kick out of that. That bit specifically I thought was the funniest. I thought it was funny that he had all of the like overly correct answers to everything she said, but when she dropped back down on him and he was reading like a feminist book, I thought it was such a beautiful little detail, especially because neither of them mention it. It's not like stated. It's just there, and it's so perfect.
I really liked when Wong first like poured, and he's like, "Why aren't you on my phone?" Oh, never mind. I realized.
And then he follows that up with, "I feel like your dad," and I thought that was also really funny.
Oh, and her dad in this at the beginning was real sweet too. I thought his line about the shovel was real cute. I don't know, I thought it was really funny. For digging, that's all I'm gonna say about that. I like that. I like that her dad, this kind of corny little man with a whole daughter, like came over there.
It's very sweet. It's a very like I don't want to say wholesome because he did imply murder, but like I but it was a very sweet dad thing to do.
Yeah.
Another thing I have noted on my phone, that's just like a very random thing I wanted to bring up was She-Hulk is very keen on doing one of my biggest pet peeves in movie and TV. And this is not a rant because I'm very much aware of why movies and TV shows do this. And I think it's fine. It's just every time it happens, part of my brain is sort of a little bit annoyed by it.
Fine, I just hate it so much.
It's fine. The thing is, like, if I was making a movie or TV show, I'd probably do it too for the sake of the movie and TV show. It does kind of annoy me. And that is when someone is like, "Hey, you, there's something you should see on the TV." And then they pick up the remote and they turn on the TV and it is already on the correct channel at the exact moment they need to be hearing.
Watch the news channel. There's one news channel in every fictional universe, and it's always on.
And the anchor waits until they know the main character has turned it on to say the most important information.
I was about to say, like, how would you get around that problem if you're making your own film?
That's what I'm like. It's one of those things. I totally get it. I totally understand.
Wait minutes through commercials. Like, okay.
I would. Like if I was making a movie, I've always thought that would be a fun bit to do once. But in terms of movies and TV shows, I get it. I totally get it. It happens like 4 times in this episode, I feel like, and I was like, this is a lot. This is a lot in one episode.
Something I think nowadays they could start to get around it, and especially in like fictional universes where technology is like cooler. Like there's so much easier ways to like essentially airdrop a video to someone you saw on the news to someone so they literally can't just pull it up and read. So I think there could be easy-ish, maybe a little awkward at first ways to get around it, but yeah, I don't know. You're gonna have to deal with that probably in the future.
I know it's a thing. I just, you know.
Wine chalice for that. It's really hard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right. But yeah, no, that guy, she finds a match, and then he's like, no. I had not heard any of the claims on Twitter that you just said. I feel
Uh,
like I'm very lucky to have not heard that.
it's one of those things once you click on one weird comment and then you have like, oh, this is a Twitter I didn't need to know existed, but now I'm here.
And I think, but I also think you made a good point, and everything you said, I agree with. I was just taken aback. I was like, I did not for a second think of it.
Well, because it's not fucking normal.
That
But I mean, people want to hate on the show and want to hate on
yeah,
women as a lead character in any way they can. So of course they're gonna somehow try to turn it into something weird. But like, people be more like Hunter and be upset with the TV being on the exact moment needed every time. That's the appropriate way to handle your rage.
that's a reasonable criticism. I think. I think for me, other people are concerned about that, and I'm like, what kind of magic remote does Jen have? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Um, let's kind of like go through some other things really quick, because there's another big question I have for you at the end of this. You mentioned earlier that the dating thing with the guy finding out that she's not She-Hulk all the time, or at the very least realizing what she looks like when she's not She-Hulk, and then deciding he doesn't like it. You mentioned that comes from the comics. So
Yeah, I've seen it. I don't know. I don't know if it was just once in the comics that I happened to read, or if it was a thing. But definitely the concept of her like going to bed with the guy, and then when she wakes up in the morning, like he's still asleep, like she's gone back into gin form. Because I think I even kind of mentioned that in the first episode, like when she sleeps, she goes back into gin form, and she was like freaking out. She's like, "You can't see me like this. Like, well, he's not gonna, he's not gonna be into it all." Blah. So
they got a thing. They're a little they're a little freaky. They like their thing. Freaky sounded worse there when I said it than I intended. As I said it, I was like, I regret that. And that's okay.
okay.
Um the portal to okay, so the road I'm taking with this is stuff in this episode that does come from the comics. We mentioned also Donnie Blaze seeming to be a verbal reference to Ghost Rider. I find that really curious. I think that's a really bold, obvious, on the nose joke to make when you're kind of building up the horror corner of your universe, and Ghost Rider might be coming soon. I don't really know what the implications for that are. Um, someone pointed out, and then I noticed that during the fight when the portals open and the monster things are coming out, um, Wong makes he has like his fire rope, and he does like kind of like a Ghost Ridery thing to like put them back in the portal, and some people think that's also not on accident. Who's to say? But there is a lot of like potential Ghost Rider reference slash content in here, which I think is really interesting. Um, his assistant, well, the guy who I think owns the venue, who's also his assistant, Cornelius P. Willows, which is a great name. As far as I know, he's not a comic book guy, even though that name slaps. One thing I did learn, though, that I would love to bring up to the folks at home, because I think it's very interesting. The actor who played Cornelius P. Willows, yeah, he's 103. Well, I think he's 104 now. Yeah, but he
Well,
was like,
fingers get cut off. I didn't know that's where you're going with it, so I was glad you did. Doing numbers.
yeah, no, I didn't realize. Listen, that guy looks and sounds great.
I saw that too, and I was like, huh.
I
Like
was
I
like,
didn't think
holy
he
crap!
was
And that
24.
does make him, for those keeping track at home, the oldest person who's ever appeared in the MCU. Which is interesting. but yeah, I don't know. That has nothing to do with anything. I just thought it was really interesting, and I was shocked when I found out that he was that old. Because truthfully, I would never have guessed that. He's in great shape. I hope to be that. Um, I hope to have that good comedic timing when I'm 100+ years old. Let's put it that way. Um, yeah, Madisynn goes to another dimension. She meets a demon named Jake. She says she makes a deal with someone. Let the Mephisto rumors recommence. Um, I like that Disney Plus finds a way to throw a little Mephisto tease into everything they do. It's great. Yeah, I don't know. And any of that stand out to you as a? I feel like a lot of it was very like comic book adjacent.
Yeah, I agree with that. It seems like it was one of those things I was watching and thought, okay, some of this could be from comics, but like pretty specific, particular comics that I'm not that familiar with. But like I agree, like it seems like it could be. I didn't personally take anything specific out of it, but a lot of it's very much normal, but like classic sort of hellish type dimension imagery anyway. I mean, you've got demons, you got goats. Goats are always demons for some reason. I don't know why. And then I don't know about Jake. That was just funny. Jake.
Madisynn is really good. I especially like Madisynn in the post credit scene. Um, that's the best. The bit specifically that has taken me out every single time I watched it is when they're talking about drinks and Wong mentions that he had like vodka and yak milk, and
Here.
the way that the actress Patricia Guggenheim, I think, um the way she delivers the like, and do you like have any of that here? Like that, it's so good. It kills me every single time.
I
This is us, and oh man, it's so good.
I, I have to like confess, I think like the first time around ish, like I wasn't that big of a fan of Madisynn. I didn't dislike her, but I was like, it seemed like kind of a tired trope a little bit, like you know. But as I kept watching, and I do agree that post credit scene she's really good. She's obviously hilarious, but she definitely like that actress is bringing most of it. Like usually,
Yeah.
like that trope is in the script, and you have kind of the ditzy voice, But like, especially in that scene, just the way
It's the
she was
earnestness.
through it.
It's the like.
And the way she's like eating the
Yeah.
popcorn. It's real, like there's very specific, but it's definitely that actress like pulling that off. Like,
Oh yeah, the trope. It's a trope for sure, but the trope for me works so well here because she is doing it with such like honesty and like I said, earnestness. Like that realness to it is it's so funny.
yeah. I mean, I'm on Team Madison now. I mean, I wasn't, again, I was never against Madison, but I was like, I didn't understand the hype. Well, I did by the time people knew about Madison, like, broadly.
Yeah.
But, no, I do. I agree. I think that actress, like, if not made for that role, like, she's, like, crushing it. Just, like, I agree, the little things, like, just the timing and the inflection in her voice and where her popcorn is, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's great.
So to close out this episode, then, and no rush because I'd like you to take your time with this. Going into an episode that neither of us have seen,
Oh.
that you do not know how they are going to handle it or how it's going to play out within the context of the MCU. This episode, pre post credits, ends with its own sort of cliffhanger, which is that Jen discovers that Titania has trademarked the name She Hulk and is now suing her for using it.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, you, again, as a person who works with this sort of thing, um, what do you think of that? And like, if you were Jen's lawyer, or if you had to be consulted on this, or whatever, like, how do you think that this plays out in the coming episodes?
I mean, how it's going to actually play out is it's going to work out for Jen, you know? I mean, I think long term, like,
well, I guess less that and more like in the real world, if this scenario happened, like what do you think would go on?
Trademark is interesting for a lot of different reasons. In this context, the issue is, let's say Titanium, she seems to have like a valid registered trademark of the term She-Hulk. A lot of questions come up mainly about consumer confusion. So if Jen was just literally trying to use it as her own trademark for something else, like, are people going to be confused about this influencer versus this Hulky, like, or maybe, I don't know. Like that, those are always weird ass questions that don't always come out intuitively. But so the interesting thing here is Jen, other than putting her name on like her matcher, or maybe I don't know what her work profile looks like, but she doesn't like use She-Hulk as like a label or brand for herself. It's something someone else called her and everyone calls her. So to the extent that that's just her name, she can't do anything about it. So really the only question realistically for trademark is if she can like put her name She-Hulk on anything. And I mean, I think I'm not quite the expert on trademark law, better at patent law, but I think there's an interesting question how much counts as like her actually using it versus that's a name she's been given. That's not, it doesn't come up a lot, you know, like no one's trademarking Hunter or Mary or, you know, so it's like, you know, I don't know. I mean, that's clearly how we're getting Titania back and how we're going to get some of her story or kind of what exactly her MCU version is. I know we kind of talked about her probably in the first episode.
For like 3 seconds in the pilot, but I do think that in the scope of this show, it is a fun way to sort of bring her back and put her in the frame of being She-Hulk's rival, I guess. In a way that to me is a lot more fun and interesting than just like, oh, sometimes she shows up and they just have like a big fist fight. Like I do like this idea that Titania is like, I'm gonna make a move to try to outplay you legally, and then it becomes sort of like a court case rivalry. And yeah, I think that's very interesting. But I had just been curious if you thought Titania had really had like a leg to stand on with this.
I'm not convinced that Jen's like doing anything with it as a trademark per se. I think maybe copyright there's more of a legal basis for a little bit. Like I mean I get the point, but I just Jen's not like using it like, as a brand.
Yeah,
and she is right. So
that's been like a point that they've made too throughout the 4 episodes we've seen is that Jen doesn't like the name She-Hulk, and Jen does not actively use the name She-Hulk herself.
mm-hmm.
And third, every single time it comes up, Jen points out and has pointed out publicly on TV that she did not come up with the name She-Hulk and that other people are the ones using it.
I wonder if this will be set up to be her journey to self-acceptance of the name of She-Hulk. You know, she gets into it.
To figure it out in court.
When she doesn't like him because it becomes a subject of that, and she's passionate about the law part of it, she fully embraces.
That'd be fun though. I would be okay with that. I think that would be nice.
Theory.
Interesting.
Oh, real quick before we go, since D23 happened and we know the leader is coming back, who we talked about last time.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought this up. I can't believe I forgot. It's because I made my notes for this episode pre D23.
Never do that.
Yes, Mary. Now who do we think hired the wrecking crew?
My guy.
Our guy. The leader.
Well, I think I technically said it first. Like, we can go back in the record.
Okay, well, we could go back and forth on this for a while, but I feel like...
I don't know if we called him that in the 2008 movie, but the leader. I was real sweet about it. Crushed it, but...
I'm claiming this as a win for both of us, and, yeah, no, I had a mental note. Like, I just talked about this with Mary, that it would be fun to have the leader back after all of these years, and then Marvel's like, he's back. It's just not, it's in the one project you probably wouldn't have guessed he was going to be in.
Werewolf by Night would have been more
Werewolf
surprising.
by leader. Um, yeah, I don't know. Part of me almost wonders if they were like they felt new theory time. Okay, so it would be fun for me if the leader was like the secret one of the secret bigger bads. Obviously we know Kang is like the big, but one of the secret like sub big bads of like phase 4 5, maybe not 4 but more so 5.
4, so he could.
Yeah, yeah. Or like he was like in the shadows for a lot of 4 and then kind of like emerges in 5, and that he's potentially going to be in a couple different projects, and they were like, well, it might leak that Tim Blake Nelson is coming back as the leader, so let's just announce him for like one of them, and then the other ones can stay a surprise or something. But yeah, I mean somebody wants that Hulk blood, and that's like famously a sort of a thing that the leader does sometimes is want that Hulk blood. And like I don't know, now it seems sketchier when like 2 days ago when I thought he was never coming back, and 2 days later here we are and we know he's coming back, so I'm like, why would it not be leader who want that Hulk blood?
Well, that's what I said. Because once they brought back Tim Roth, it's like all bets are off for them ignoring the Incredible Hulk. They brought one person back. I mean, technically,
Well, yeah, technically Ross came back.
but he's now passed away. But other than him, obviously none of that came back whatsoever. So the fact that they started to, I was like, they want to. Plus, again, we've talked about the rumors of like a Hulk or Hulky solo-y movie, maybe someday on the horizon. Obviously, not something that's been announced. So the fact that we now know that the leader will be in Cat 4, um, more stepping stones to that. So I think, which is interesting though, because if you assume he's going to relate to Hulks at some point, which is I think a safe bet, then you kind of have to assume that Cat 4 is going into a Hulk year.
Yeah.
Post Cat 4. So then you go, like, what's Cat 4 about? Yeah, lots of questions.
I mean, Captain America 4 is called New World Order, which, people online have pointed out has a lot of meanings. And that's true. People have used the phrase New World Order in a lot of ways over the years. And I'm not denying that or, you know, putting down the way that makes some people feel. But the general concept of what New World Order means is very literal in the sense of like a new world order. And if the leader is the bad guy and he want that Hulk blood, maybe his New World Order is something sort of hulky, like a Gamma World situation, which is again feels weird as the plot of like a Captain America movie.
And it almost makes me feel like Sam has to lose.
Yeah.
If the hulkiness goes forward to something hulkier.
It's a very strange move to make like a character who's
for Sam.
yeah, it's a strange move to make a character who is famously a Hulk villain, like the main antagonist of not only a Captain America movie, but a Captain America movie that is also like the first Sam Wilson Captain America movie.
I know. When does Thunderbolts come out compared to Cat 4? Is it after Cat 4?
After, yeah, I think it's the I think New World Order actually is the last movie before Thunderbolts.
Okay, so what if Sam loses? That'd be so sad. What if Sam loses, and then the Thunderbolts are called in to try to do whatever with what Sam just lost to, and then we get World War Hulk.
Wait, Mary, it's all coming together.
I know, but what if Sam? I'm so sad that Sam could.
I know this is really sad, but I'm gonna be really pumped if all of this comes to real and we're like we can just point to this video because Thunderbolts is the finale of Phase 5. That's how I know it's after New World Order because the only Phase 6 movie is that we have confirmed is Fantastic Four, right? And then the two Avengers. So yeah, so as far as we know, aside from the two Avengers movies and Fantastic Four, most other things are leading to a finale that involves the Thunderbolts, a movie in which we don't know who the villain is still. Yes, please, Mary.
Well, I was just thinking, okay, because your point is, so it's the last movie of a phase, and then take out phase 4, every phase has had a team up, crossover, big event. So that's probably going to be that. And I think.
Wait, I don't mean to interrupt you, but to build up the point that I feel like you're making right now, at D23, that's like a thing that Kevin Feige, someone who was on stage was like,
Avengers, like that doesn't mean
yeah.
I was there. We're on the same page. But so if they do build up the leader as basically the phase 5 villain,
right?
I don't know when World War Hulks really roll up, but I mean that could be.
Unless, of
he
course,
could be picking up if that's
Unless, of course, World War Hulks was like not a rumor. It was a rumored project. We know it was heavily rumored. What if that was like an idea? But what if World War Hulks wasn't? We're going like really crazy conspiracy theorists now. What if instead of doing World War Hulks, and the reason that we haven't heard about it in a while is because they essentially decided to take World War Hulks and kind of like spread it like all over Phase 5, so that is like the underlying threat of Phase 5 is the leader and his World War 5.
Okay, because so in She-Hulk, I think it's going to end on some terms of there are more Hulks out there.
Yeah, I feel like that is.
It doesn't matter, but clearly they're leading up to that's at least going to be a cliffhanger of the series. Is does Bruce have a son? Is whatever what's his face? Abomination, Hulky, we don't know. But so then and then we get someday to Cat 4, and there's a bunch. I don't know. It could be. This could just be the Hulk phase, a Phase 5 Hulk phase. Called it.
They're like, you never got a Hulk sequel, so we're just giving you taking everybody else's projects for a whole phase, and they're all going to be Hulk themed.
Okay, I'm trying to think about the rest of Phase 5 and what the Marvel's Hulk.
I can't wait until Blade fights Vampire Hulk. They're like, in the MCU, Blade does not fight vampires; he just fights Hulks. That's his whole thing.
Loki season 2 Hulks, like that's all there is.
It's just Hulks from different. The main villain of Loki season 2 is Maestro, actually.
I hope it's Edward Norton. I'm still waiting for multiversal Edward Norton.
Maestro, and it's Edward Norton's Hulk.
I think he'd have a good humor about it. He'd be like, sure.
Yeah. Too, and I think that Edward Norton can be more convincingly menacing than Mark Ruffalo can.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we have cracked the code. Anyone watching this, you're welcome, because now you know everything that's going to happen in Phase 5. It's all Hulks. It's Hulks all the way down.
Betty Ross. The Thunderbolt. They just didn't put her in there. Didn't want to spoil it.
She is the Thunderbolt.
Missing Thunderbolts. That's true. How are they going to name it Thunderbolt? I mean, obviously he still existed and isn't necessarily gone.
To be fair, I don't Thunderbolts the comic team weren't originally named after him, right? Because it was like Zemo who came up with them, and it was like a whole other thing.
They would go with that, but you're right.
My thought is they might. Again, I don't want this to sound like I'm cheapening the passing of a human being or anything, but like within the context of the MCU, I could see them saying, oh, like the guy who actually thought of this concept originally was General Ross, but he has like since passed, and because this was his idea in his honor, this is like Operation Thunderbolt, and we're gonna just call you the Thunderbolts or something. I feel like that's likely.
Betty Ross shows up and is like, I am the leader. Actually, well, not the leader. The leader's a different leader. But in my dad's place, yeah, we're the Thunderbolts. Let's go.
Taskmaster takes their mask off, and instead of Olga Kurylenko, it's Liv Tyler, um, as Betty. I
But it takes
recently
the arm off. It's Liv Tyler's arm. You never know.
I recently was giggling to myself about the idea that they put Taskmaster in a bunch of movies, and every time Taskmaster takes their mask off, it's a different person. Like, it's never the same person. You never know who it's going to be. I thought that would be a really stupid plot device, but something that I think is funny. Although, while we're here and talking about it, and I'm going to throw this out here on other places, um, you know, that Thunderbolts lineup does not have Zemo in it. And imagine if Taskmaster takes off that mask and it's Daniel Bruhl.
Confirmed. It's I forgot the actress's name, but the black
Yeah,
one.
but that
They've officially said that, right? Okay, I didn't know if I was making that.
yeah, they did. No, they did. They I think like on one of their social media posts they like tagged her on it, so everyone was like, okay, that seems like
It's odd because of all the characters, she literally purposefully had no sense of personality or identity. So it's an odd one to just be like, yeah, here's one of your crossover characters, guys.
well, we do another 30 minutes on Thunderbolts. I I I feel like the opportunity with Taskmaster is because she was so much of like a blank slate by the end of.
But they'd
Well,
have
I
to
mean,
be
I
out.
shouldn't say blank slate because she has experienced an immense amount of trauma, but
Yeah.
like aside from that, personality wise, we don't like know her that well, and I felt like Thunderbolts might be the opportunity to say, okay, within the universe, she has now been of her own free will for, you know, that was 2019, whatever that was, and now we're in 2020 Leaf, and like, who is to say how she's developed, and that could be like a whole fun thing. But
In terms of how long it could take if they were really trying to set her up to be something, obviously more than we've gotten to see, like how long that would take in the context of the crossover movie. But to your point, they could just be like, put her in and she's just something already, and we're just like,
yeah, she's like smoking cigars, and she's
we're
like,
here for
I've
the.
been out here in the streets for X amount of years. We're not gonna specify for the sake of the story.
It's like the Suicide Squad. She could be like the Pete Davidson and just be out in like 5 minutes. There's never even
Maybe she's the one who's like, "What are we? Some kind of Suicide Squad?" And someone's like, "No, you can't say that." And then that's how the movie ends. Okay, I hope everyone watching this has enjoyed it, and I feel like once we've hit about 15 minutes on Thunderbolts, I feel like maybe the whole conversation is over. Um,
Phase 5.
Phase 5.
Sure.
Who is to say? Um, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of the Universal Court of Truth. I have been one half of your host slash court person slash Madisynn stand-in Hunter.
I've been the other half of your host slash court person. I can't. There can't be two Madison standards. I'll be Wongers.
Madisynn.
Guinness is my favorite drink, so Wongers and I basically the same.
Your favorite drink is? Have you had yak milk and vodka?
No, I'm vegan, so I don't think I'll have the yak milk.
One of us has got to try
I'll put some soy milk in.
it.
Yeah, see what happens.
I'm gonna try to get my hands on some yak milk for like the finale of this, and then like dip some vodka in it and see what happens.
Dip some vodka in it. You're gonna dip.
Well, I'm not gonna dip
Vodka.
it. Like dip some vodka was like a fun way to say that.
You can't even do that. I guess if you had it like in a really weird spoon. I just.
I'm not out here thinking about specifics. That's
You should. We only have like 5 more weeks, so.
okay. I have 5 weeks to acquire some yak milk. That's
That
what
could be hard. I don't know.
it's probably difficult. I don't imagine I can just find yak milk at the store. There's gonna have to be a special order.
I live in New York though, so
That's true.
yeah.
There might be a yak milk store here.
I live in Portland, so they're similar. Yeah, honestly.
I think it's more likely in Portland.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, we already did the outros, so goodbye, everyone.